In the heart of a bustling African marketplace, where the sun beat down on dusty roads and laughter mixed with the chatter of vendors, three village boys suddenly burst into cruel laughter. Their voices echoed as they pointed at a thin, crippled young man dragging himself forward with a worn-out wooden crutch. His clothes were torn, his hair unkempt, and his face partly hidden beneath layers of dust. To them, he was nothing more than a joke, a powerless nobody struggling to exist. But as the bullies walked away, still laughing at their own cruelty, the young man slowly lifted his head. For a split second, his eyes changed sharp, intelligent, and strangely confident, the eyes of someone who knew far more than the world assumed. Just a few steps behind him, parked quietly under a mango tree, a sleek black SUV watched him closely. Inside it, a man in a tailored suit pressed a finger to his earpiece and whispered, "Sir, do we reveal your identity today?" The crippled young man, didn't even look back. He simply sighed and said, "Not yet. Let them laugh. They don't know who I am." Far beyond the dust and poverty surrounding him, Kama's story was nothing like the villagers imagined. Born into immense wealth, he was the secret heir to a powerful business empire that stretched across borders. Before tragedy struck, he had lived a life of jets, private academies, and boardrooms filled with decision-makers who bowed when he spoke. But when a devastating accident took his father's life and left Kama temporarily crippled, greedy relatives plotted to steal everything from him, believing he would never rise again. Betrayed by blood and hunted by those who wanted him erased, Kama disappeared from the world he once ruled. He arrived in this village disguised as a poor, broken stranger choosing to hide in a place where no one would search for him, a place where he could observe humanity when people believed he had nothing to offer. Here, he learned painful truths. People respected only those who looked powerful. The poor were ignored, the disabled mocked, and kindness was rare. Yet in the middle of all this, one girl Zuri treated him with gentle compassion, offering him water when he was thirsty and standing up for him when others looked away. For the first time in a long while, Kama felt seen not for his wealth, but for his humanity. And as he watched the bullies laugh at him again, unaware that their target was a billionaire in disguise, Kama knew one thing with certainty. The world was about to learn a lesson they would never forget. The morning sun rose high above the crowded African marketplace, casting gold over stalls packed with colorful fruits, woven baskets, and spicy aromas drifting through the air. Among the noise and movement, a sudden burst of laughter cut sharply across the scene. Three boys, Yarrow, Tamo, and Bus, were pointing at a thin young man struggling to move using a single cracked wooden crutch. His clothes were dusty and oversized, his steps slow and uneven as he tried to balance himself. The boys mimicked his limp, exaggerating each movement until people around him couldn't help but glance over. Kama paused, steadying himself as he looked at the ground, refusing to show any reaction. His silence only encouraged the bullies, who stepped closer, circling him like restless dogs. "Look at him!" Yarrow shouted. "He walks like he's made of rubber." The others roared with laughter, slapping their thighs. A few adults shook their heads but kept walking, pretending not to see. Nobody wanted trouble. Kama's face remained expressionless. But deep inside, beneath the quiet surface, something powerful simmered, a strength carefully hidden beneath ragged clothes and a crippled posture. He glanced briefly toward the road where a black SUV sat half-hidden by a jacaranda tree. The tinted window lowered just enough for a guard inside to watch him closely. Kama gave the slightest nod. The bullies, satisfied with their morning entertainment, finally walked away, still laughing. As the crowd dispersed, Kama allowed himself a slow breath. He had endured worse. And though these boys thought they were mocking a helpless cripple, they had no idea who he really was or how dramatically their lives were about to change. Just as Kama tried to continue walking, his crutch slipped slightly in the dust. Before he could fall, A pair of gentle hands caught his arm. "Careful," a soft voice said. He turned to see Zuri, a young woman with bright eyes and braided hair wrapped in a colorful scarf. Unlike the others, she did not look at him with pity or disgust, only genuine concern. "Did they hurt you again?" she asked, brushing dirt from his sleeve. "No," Kama replied quietly. "They just talk." Zuri sighed, glancing at the retreating bullies. Talking can cut deeper than a knife. She handed him a small clay cup filled with cool water. "Here, you look exhausted." Kama accepted it gratefully. Few people had ever offered him kindness since he arrived in the village. He studied her for a moment, her patience, the way she listened, the warmth in her voice. She was a rare soul in a world that measured a person's worth by wealth or appearance. "You shouldn't help me," Kama murmured. "People will mock you too. Let them," Zuri said with a shrug. "I don't care what they think." Her courage surprised him. Villagers often kept distance from anyone considered less fortunate, fearing association would lower their own status. But Zuri didn't care about status. She cared about people. As they walked slowly toward a shaded tree, she asked, "Kama, where did you come from before this village?" He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "Far from here. A place I no longer belong." Zuri didn't push further. Instead, she smiled gently. "Well, you belong here now. And you're not alone." Kama looked away, hiding the emotions threatening to show. If only she knew how untrue her words were and how dangerous his truth could be. Later that afternoon, as the marketplace grew louder with traders bargaining and children playing, the bullies returned. Their eyes immediately locked onto Kama, who sat quietly under a mango tree, repairing the worn tip of his crutch with a small piece of cloth. Yarrow smirked. "Look, he's fixing his broken stick again. Maybe he should fix himself too." Before Kama could react, Timo snatched the crutch from his hands. Kama reached out instinctively, but lost his balance, landing hard on the ground. Dust rose around him, and the marketplace froze for a moment. Some people turned away, pretending not to see the cruelty unfolding. "Give it back," Kama said calmly. Timo dangled the crutch above his head like a trophy. "Come get it." Zuri appeared instantly, pushing through the crowd. "Stop this," she shouted. "He hasn't done anything to you." Bus sneered. "Why do you always defend him? He's useless." Zuri stepped in front of Kama protectively. "Maybe you should look in the mirror before calling someone useless." Her boldness irritated them. Yarrow shoved the crutch into the mud. "There, let him crawl for it." The crowd gasped but didn't intervene. Zuri knelt beside Kama and helped him sit up. He didn't show anger, only quiet disappointment. "Why do you let them treat you like this?" she whispered. "Because sometimes silence teaches louder than anger," he answered. But inside, Kama felt a familiar sting, not from the fall, but from seeing how easily humanity could lose compassion. If today's cruelty didn't break him, nothing would. And as the bullies strutted away proudly, Kama knew this humiliation would soon return to them in ways they couldn't imagine. That night, when the village had grown quiet and only distant drums echoed faintly through the hills, Kama slipped away toward the outskirts. His limp was more pronounced after the fall, but his mind remained sharp. He reached a secluded clearing where tall acacia trees cast long shadows over the ground. From the darkness, headlights flickered, 3 black SUVs rolling silently toward him. Their engines hummed softly before switching off, and several men in suits stepped out. They bowed respectfully. "Sir Kama Mwanji," the lead guard said, "we received your signal. Are you hurt?" "Not in a way that matters," Kama replied. Another guard handed him a tablet. "Your uncle has taken control of the company's Nairobi headquarters. He believes you're dead." Kama's jaw tightened. So the betrayal continued. He had expected it, but hearing it confirmed still stung. "There is more," the guard continued. "Your medical progress has improved. With therapy, you could walk normally within months. I will heal when it is time, Kama answered. For now, my role here isn't finished. Unseen by the guards, Zuri had followed him, worried about his disappearance. She hid behind a tree, stunned by the scene in front of her. The men treated Kama with deep respect. They called him Sir. They spoke of power, wealth, and danger, things the village cripple was never associated with. She covered her mouth, trying not to gasp. Kama dismissed the guards, promising to send instructions soon. When the vehicles finally disappeared into the night, he turned only to find Zuri trembling behind a tree. How? Who are you? She whispered. Kama sighed heavily. Someone you were never supposed to find out about. And with those words, the fragile world he built began to crack. Over the next week, dark clouds gathered, not in the sky, but in the lives of the villagers. The harvest had failed. The crops, once green and promising, wilted under an unexpected drought. Livestock grew weak. The village school announced it might close due to lack of funds. Parents worried about feeding their families. Markets grew quiet. Laughter disappeared. Kama observed everything quietly. He watched mothers barter desperately. Children skip meals. Elders sit silently in worry. The bullies, however, seemed unaffected. They still wandered the village aimlessly, joking around, mocking others to hide their own insecurity. Zuri approached Kama one afternoon. People are suffering, she said softly. The chief is calling for help, but no one is answering. If only, she paused, choosing her words carefully. If only someone with resources could do something. Kama looked at her steadily. She knew, even without saying it, that she was hinting at him, but he wasn't ready. Not yet. His identity still needed to remain hidden until the right moment. The village has survived hardships before, he said. Zuri shook her head. Not like this, Kama. This time it's different. Watching her worry stirred something inside him. He had vowed not to intervene too soon, not until he understood the hearts of the people around him. But seeing children cry from hunger, he couldn't ignore it. That night, sitting alone under the moonlight, Kama whispered, "It's time." The next morning, a decision had already been made. The village didn't know it yet, but change was coming quietly, powerfully, and from the one person they believed had nothing to give. Within days, mysterious blessings began to appear across the struggling village. First, the school headmaster arrived early one morning to find an envelope taped to the door. Inside was enough money to keep the school running for an entire year. No name, no message, only the words, "For the children." Next, a new water pump appeared near the village center, built overnight. People gathered around it in disbelief. "Who could have done this?" they murmured. "No one here has this kind of money." Clean water flowed powerfully from the pump, something the village had prayed for years. Then came bags of grain delivered quietly to families in need. Widows found medicines left at their doorstep. Shoes appeared for children who had none. Every act of help felt like a miracle. The villagers created a name for their unseen savior, the Angel Donor. Maybe it's a government project, someone guessed. "No," said another. "Government doesn't move this fast." Then who? Only one person knew the truth, Zuri. She watched Kama from a distance as he limped across the village, blending in with the crowd of people, now praising the mysterious helper. No one looked at him twice. He was invisible to them, and perhaps that was why his help felt so real. But the bullies reacted differently. Envy twisted their hearts. "Whoever this rich person is, they're showing off," Yarrow complained. "Yeah," Tamo agreed. "And everyone is acting like there's some kind of hero." Bus clenched his fists. "Let's teach this angel a lesson. They think they're better than us. Their jealousy blinded them. They were about to make the biggest mistake of their lives, and the first crack would appear in the very gift meant to help them all." Late one evening, when most villagers had returned home, the three bullies crept secretly toward the new water pump. Their eyes darted around nervously, but anger pushed them forward. "Why should everyone worship this angel donor?" Boss growled. "Yeah," Yarrow added. "People stopped paying attention to us since all this free stuff started arriving." Timo kicked the pump lightly. "Let's see how they manage without water." With sticks and metal rods, they began striking the pump, denting its surface and loosening its pipes. Water splashed everywhere. They laughed, satisfied with the destruction. But they didn't realize a small security camera installed quietly by Kama's team watched everything. By morning, the villagers discovered the damage. Panic spread. Mothers hurried to fill containers before the water disappeared. The chief called an emergency meeting in the village square. Who would destroy something meant for all of us? He demanded angrily. Zuri looked at Kama, who stood silently in the crowd. He gave her the smallest nod. She understood he was ready. As the villagers argued among themselves, a black SUV drove slowly into the village. People fell silent. 3 guards stepped out, followed by the head of security holding a tablet. The chief frowned nervously. "Who are you?" "We are here on behalf of the donor," the guard replied. "And we have something to show you." The crowd grew tense as the tablet lit up. On the screen, the entire village watched the bullies destroying the water pump with their own hands. Gasps filled the air. Some people shouted. Others stepped away from the boys in disgust. Their faces turned white with fear. But this was only the beginning. Judgment and truth were both approaching. The chief ordered the 3 boys to stand before the villagers. Shame flushed their faces as angry murmurs rippled through the crowd. Parents shook their heads. Elders whispered prayers. "Why?" the chief demanded. "Why would you destroy something meant to help your own people?" None of the boys had an answer. They stared at the ground, suddenly realizing how small their world truly was. At that moment, the head of security stepped aside. "The donor will speak for himself," he announced. The crowd parted instinctively as a familiar figure stepped forward leaning on a crutch. Wearing dusty clothes, limping slowly. Kama. People blinked in confusion. "Him?" someone whispered. "The cripple?" Kama reached the front, lifted his head, and looked directly at the chief. His voice was calm but powerful. "I did not come here to be praised. I came here to understand people. To learn who shows compassion when they believe a man has nothing." Zuri stepped beside him proudly. The villagers stared, struggling to understand. Kama continued. "I am Kama Mwanji, son of the late David Mwanji, heir to Mwanji Holdings." Gasps exploded through the crowd. Mothers clasped their mouths. Some men stepped back in shock. The boys trembled violently. A guard opened a case, revealing documents, photos, and news clippings confirming everything. Kama looked at the villagers with steady eyes. "I lived among you as a poor cripple because I wanted to see the truth in people's hearts. Some mocked me, some ignored me, but some, like Zuri, treated me like a human being." He turned toward the bullies. "Your actions hurt not just me, but your entire community. But what you choose next will determine who you become." The village held its breath, waiting for his verdict. The bullies knelt on the ground, trembling. Everyone watched them silently, expecting Kama to punish them harshly. After all, they had humiliated him, attacked him, and damaged the very things meant to help the village. But Kama looked at them with calm eyes, not angry, not triumphant, just deeply disappointed. "You made fun of me because you thought I was weaker," he said softly. "You destroyed the pump because you envied someone who helped others. But you only hurt yourselves and your people." Yarrow stuttered. "Please, we didn't know." "We?" Kama raised a hand. "That's the problem. You didn't know because you didn't try to understand anyone but yourselves." The chief stepped forward. "Shall we punish them, sir?" Kama shook his head. "No, punishment alone doesn't change people. Responsibility does." He turned back to the boys. "You will rebuild the pump with your own hands." You will help distribute food and water to every home. And you will work for the school you nearly shut down with your cruelty." The villagers murmured in approval. It was fair. It was just. Zuri stepped forward. "And maybe," she added gently, "this will teach you to treat others with kindness." The boys nodded quickly, tears forming in their eyes. Kama continued, "If you complete this work and truly change your behavior, I will consider your debt repaid. But if you harm this community again—" He paused, letting the silence finish the sentence. Everyone understood. The boys bowed their heads. "Thank you for giving us another chance," Timo whispered. Kama looked out over the villagers. "We all deserve a chance to become better." The crowd erupted in applause, not just for Kama's power, but for his compassion. In the weeks that followed, the village transformed in ways no one had imagined. Under Kama's guidance and his quiet funding, the damaged pump was fully repaired. The bullies worked tirelessly, learning humility as they hauled heavy pipes under the hot sun. Villagers who once avoided them now encouraged them, seeing their effort to change. Kama invested in rebuilding the school, adding new classrooms, books, and even a small computer lab. Children who once studied under broken roofs now had bright, safe spaces to learn. Women received new farming tools. Elders received medical support. Yet Kama did not seek fame. He dressed simply, walked among the people, and listened to their stories. Over time, the villagers' perception shifted. They no longer saw a cripple. They saw a leader, a visionary, and a man whose heart was bigger than his fortune. One evening, Zuri joined him overlooking the sunset-painted fields. "You've changed everything," she said softly. "No," Kama replied. "You did. You showed me kindness when I had nothing. Without that, I may have never revealed myself. You reminded me of who I am." Zuri smiled shyly. "What will you do now?" Kama looked toward the bustling village. "I will continue helping here. And when the time is right, I'll return to reclaim what was stolen from me. But I'll never forget this place or the lessons it taught me." Children ran past them, laughing. The sound warmed Kama's heart. He had come to the village hiding from danger, broken by betrayal. But he was leaving stronger, wiser, and surrounded by people who finally knew his worth. As the camera fades out, Kama walks forward confidently, no longer defined by his injuries or disguise. His final voiceover echoes, "Never judge a person by what they appear to lack." Sometimes the poorest-looking man carries the richest soul. As the sun dipped below the horizon, spreading warm gold across the village he had once entered as a forgotten cripple, Kama stood quietly at the edge of the fields, watching life bloom where suffering once lived. Children laughed as they filled buckets at the repaired water pump. Mothers shared stories with renewed hope. And even the former bullies worked with honest sweat on their brows, proving that hearts can change when given a chance. Zuri walked beside him, her presence gentle yet strong, the first person who had seen his humanity beneath the dust and torn clothes. Kama breathed deeply, feeling a peace he had not known since before the accident, before the betrayal, before hiding behind a disguise that taught him more about the world than wealth ever had. He turned to the village one last time and whispered, "Your kindness saved me as much as my help saved you." And with that, he stepped forward, not as a victim, not as a cripple, but as a man reborn in purpose. His story became a reminder that dignity does not come from riches. Respect cannot be earned by cruelty, and appearances often hide the deepest truths. For those who once mocked him learned humility, those who ignored him learned empathy, and the one who defended him taught him hope. As the screen slowly faded to black, the final message appeared like a quiet echo. Never underestimate the broken. Never shame the struggling. The person you look down on today may be the one who lifts the world tomorrow.